All right, hey everybody, it's Luke, and we've been talking a little bit about the challenges training for Boston. So, first part we talked about timing, more specifically about training starts. Probably the worst time of year for a lot of people, right around the holidays for whatever reason. A very busy time of year, very stressful time of year for a lot of people, and I 100% get that. And if you want to check that out, go see part one. We'll have links for it in the blog or in the show notes or video wherever you're taking this in. But today I want to expand wherever you're taking this in. But today I want to expand once into when people really start training, right? So what is the biggest factor? And to me, that is the winter months, right? So um, you know, I have a lot of people all over the country. So my people like, for training for Boston, for them is pretty ideal. But for you're anywhere where it's cold and snowy and all that good stuff, it's a tough stretch. It's a tough time of year to be training for one of the biggest races in the world, right? And so, like where I'm at, winters aren't too bad through the end of December. Like you can get through Christmas, the first of the year, and it's usually pretty decent. There might be a little bit of snow, but it's nothing bad. Um, but once the holidays are over and once the new year rolls around, like from like the first part of January through at least the end of February, it sucks. It sucks here. There's no way to put it, right? So we might not get a ton of snow, but it is so cold. It is so windy. It's just footing is usually very, very bad because whatever snow we do get, uh, between the wind and everything, like once it's there, it's there. It won't go until it's warm enough to melt, right? And so you're very limited on where you can run, and it's just tough, right? So, but the flip side of that, like I was telling somebody this the other day, like it's two different winters for sure, right? So like here in Metro Detroit, don't get a ton of snow, but it's very cold and windy. You go over to the west side of the state and you get that lake effect snow coming off of Lake Michigan. Like everybody in Buffalo, you guys all know what I'm talking about. Like you're talking about inches per hour as much as it snows, right? It is brutal. Like I was telling them, like it's not a problem for us to get over 10 feet of snow a year, easy. And it's just a big difference between just a 2 hour drive away, and it's such a big difference in what your winters would look like. But the bottom line is that it's cold, it's dark, it's windy. What your winters would look like. But the bottom line is that it's cold, it's dark, it's windy. Tend to have poor footing, wearing a bunch of layers. Cold affects performance in a number of ways, right? Just wearing extra clothes, your range of motion's restricted, your sweat's trapped in more. You're running the risk of cold. Um, and training in it can seem like you're going backwards, and knowing our true fitness levels is pretty difficult sometimes, and that's the bottom line there. But if you're in a warmer climate, just know that we're very jealous of you. You probably don't need to listen to this much further. Um, unless you're running, pitch black or whatever. But for most, if you're somewhere where it's above freezing in the morning, you probably don't need to listen to this one. So for those who deal with this kind of weather, though, I don't really need to explain the challenges it provides us, right? You know what it's like in the winter. The biggest thing I can do is just offer some guidance on how to approach this and how to navigate it. And so when it comes to winter running and how to navigate it, you know exactly what is going to be said, and I can hear it now. That no way, man. I'm a bro. I don't do treadmills. I don't do treadmills. I'm a macho man. Whatever. Whatever. I don't understand it, but whatever. Trying to tell me it's not real running, but I'm talking about the treadmill, right? So if you're in that bro camp and that you are just going to tough it out, I'll just remind you something that my daddy taught me along and being stupid. I know I cross that line a lot. So, but it is like, and I get it. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. But like, don't bash on people run. Like, well, it's real running, okay? And honestly, too, like if a person and honestly too, like if a person's doing a base plan or doing 30, 60-minute runs a few times a week, then go outside, do whatever you got to do. But to me, there is a awful big difference between getting your daily exercise and training for a marathon, right? The difference between somebody who is, yelling at you about toughness and they're doing 15 miles a week, and yet you're trying to do 60 miles a week and put these intense workouts in. It's two completely different scenarios, right? And so, and I 100%, I would rather run outside as well. And I'm definitely in the camp of, if I can, I will. But over the years, I've seen so many of my athletes and myself develop just trying to do everything. I mean, everything on poor footing, stride changes, like when it's dark out and you're not sure if it's black ice under there or what's going on. And I've seen a lot of needless injuries happen and just develop chronic things that just stick around the whole winter, and they're not ready to go in the spring. Around the whole winter, and they're not ready to go in the spring. And it's a situation we can avoid. And I'm 100% convinced that it's just doing everything outside, right? And I'm telling you, I want you to pick up on what I'm saying. Like everything you're doing. Like if you're doing some things outside, fine. Everything outside, fine. Everything outside in really poor weather is probably a recipe for something to go wrong, right? Okay. So with that, balance time outside and inside, right? So invest $10 a month. Join a Planet Fitness. No, I'm not affiliated with Planet Fitness, but it's $10 a month. I did it for my wife and I last year, and you can use all the equipment you want. Commit to doing at least your easy runs on poor footing days on the treadmill, right? So if it's really poor footing, and you say, oh, all I can do is muster, I can maybe suffer through 60 minutes of running on the treadmill. Perfect. Go to the treadmill. Perfect. Go to the treadmill, suffer on it for 60 minutes, be bored out of your mind, but be healthy. Okay. Even if you only need, oh, and here's the other thing too. Once you're done with that 60 minutes, go take 20 minutes and do some lifting. All right. You're right there. Go do it. So even if you only need it for, say, you spent $20, like, I don't think you have to sign up for a certain amount of time or anything like that. You spent $20. If you didn't use it, you're out $20, right? And you say to yourself once a week, okay, so if you use it once a week for 2 months, that's $2.50 a run. You just gave yourself a body a break. So I feel like that's pretty good return on investment, just to give yourself a break at least once a week, right? Like, just don't have to suffer through every single run on poor footing, right? The biggest thing I can do that I want to do by encouraging you to keep an open mind about the treadmill is more about just giving your body a break from the constant poor footing on the sidewalk and streets. Secondly, everyone a long run or a tempo run so that you can just build your confidence, right? So if you go and you do every long run and you're just slogging through, and it's, the same run is 15 minutes slower than what you were doing in the fall, and you're saying, oh my gosh, my fitness is gone. Well, is it gone, or is it just because of the conditions now? Is it gone, or is it just because of the conditions now? The situation is completely different. So doing, say, a long run on a treadmill every once in a while, or we figure out how to do a tempo run on a treadmill, we can get a much better idea of how fit you actually are. And so then we can adjust based on, will probably be affected every once in a while. It's nice to not have to worry about all that stuff. That's the main point I want to make. It's just nice to have a break once in a while. All right. So the biggest complaint I get with doing runs on the treadmill is I can't run fast on a treadmill. I get bored, I get dizzy, vertigo, whatever. I want to discuss what running fast in a second. Because it's a very valid concern, but quickly address the last two. So getting bored does suck. It absolutely gets bored. Podcast music only takes you so far, does so much for you. I see it as an opportunity to get attentive with yourself. When you look at the fastest runners in the world, they're not concerned with what's going on around them, right? They're concerned about what's going on inside. And by that, I mean, like, they're going through a mental checklist of, how is my form? How is my breathing? Yes, this hurts. Accept it, move on, right? If you can do that and be focused on the internal rather than just what's going around you to keep your brain occupied, you can become a much, much better runner. I actually do my best thinking on the treadmill. I have incredible ideas on the treadmill. My biggest problem is, though, I just never bring anything to write them down. Like, I think you can with that Apple Watch, right? Like, you can take that, you could do a voice memo or something, right? But thing where I have better mental acuity to remember what I wrote down or have something with me to write it down. But honestly, being bored is a great opportunity to develop focus and mental toughness. It's a great opportunity to learn how to zone out, get into a rhythm, save mental energy for when you're really going to need it. Because how many times I see people waste so much mental energy in miles of a marathon only to be completely mentally exhausted where they cannot bear down and focus on what they are doing. And the reason, one of the part I would say, obviously there's physiological stuff going on there too, but I would say a lot of people just don't have the mental strength left by the time till they get where it's really hard. Just don't have the mental strength left by the time till they get where it's really hard to bear down and focus, or they're trying to disassociate themselves from the discomfort, and all of a sudden it is very uncomfortable, and they don't know how to handle it. If you know how to handle it and you've done that in training, it makes it much more reasonable. It's like you've got to know that your mental energy is like a gas tank, and if you're spending all of that mental energy in the first 20 miles looking at your watch, making sure you're within 3 seconds of your pace or whatever the case is, and constantly adjusting, constantly overthinking things, by the time you get to when it's really hard, there's nothing things. By the time you get to when it's really hard, there's nothing left in the tank and you cannot bear down and focus. And you've got to get to a point where you can do that. All right. So as for getting dizzy or anything like that, I get it. I know people that work for me that they just cannot run on a treadmill. I've seen them basically go off the back end of the treadmill. They just can't do it. And so I'm not going to be the one to just tell you suck it up and figure it out. It's probably not the best thing for you, right? Unless you can get that figured out. But I'm not going to just tell you that that's what you have to do it no matter what. All right. So as for running fast on a treadmill, yes, I understand the issues. I think faster, I would personally require, like you watch them in the labs, in those exercise phys labs where they're got those treadmills, they're basically built into the ground and there was a tether coming down from like a harness coming down from the ceiling. That's what I would need, because I know I would fly off the back end of that thing pretty quick. I don't trust it. I don't trust myself. And you know what else gets me? I've never understood this. I've never, ever understood this. Why on earth would you take a person, and I see this, I have a good friend from college. He owns a speed, he trains a lot for football players, track guys, whatever, over by me, and he has a treadmill, and it's one of those woodways that goes 100 miles an hour, and he has him speed up and then jump on the treadmill. And I see this all the time, and I'm like, why on earth would you do that? Just hit the start button, get on the belt, and then take the speed up. Get on the belt, and then take the speed up. I don't get why you would do that. I've never understood why you would do that. It makes zero sense to me. All right. Anyway, sorry, but it's tough, right? And I would need one of those harnesses coming down from the ceiling. But so I would not tell somebody necessarily to do that. And we're training for Boston. So you should be able to, you can work on hills and do that on the treadmill. That treadmill is a perfect spot to do hills because we're more worried about the hill than the speed, right? So we can definitely do that. But I definitely wouldn't say, if we're trying to alternate workouts that we're doing on the hill, I wouldn't go do every speed workout and turn it into a hill workout, because then you'd mess up the timing of what we're trying to do. But if you have a hill workout and it's crappy day out, you can very easily go to do it on a treadmill. But the long run, to me, I love doing long runs on the treadmill if the weather is not cooperating. I like to do it just every once in a while anyway, because it's the perfect opportunity to set it and forget it. Set your pace. You can build your pace up. Start out very easy, build it up over the course of the time. And then you can really work on that mental aspect of things, right? And it does get boring. And the other thing too is you can work on your gloves off to get to a gel packet. Try to open up a gel packet when it's freezing out, and then it's like it's a clumpy mess in your mouth. It's just a disaster, right? So doing this on a treadmill gives you an opportunity to practice with your gels, practice with your fluids at the rate you want to do it with your gels. Practice with your fluids at the rate you want to do it, all that good stuff, and you can actually get the practice that you need. So again, it's one of those situations where, the running is providing the fitness. However, those little details are going to make you a better racer, and they're going to get you more prepared to actually perform on race day. So that would be the one thing. Tempo runs, maybe strength runs. We'll talk about in a second, but you can use our treadmill calculator to easily manipulate our speed and grade to match the desired outdoor intensity. So, well, let me just talk about it now. So your intensity is actually higher. So this basically correlates what that intensity would be into a pace, right? And so let's say you want to do a tempo run, but let's say your marathon pace is 7:30 a mile. And you're like, man, 7:30 miles pretty fast on the treadmill. I don't know if I could do that. Well, what would be the equivalent if I set it at pretty fast on the treadmill? I don't know if I could do that. Well, what would be the equivalent if I set it at 7:45 and I put the grade at whatever percent I needed to make the intensity a 7:30 intensity? Well, that calculator will do that, right? So you're adding just a little bit of grade, and then you can adjust it so that the pace is a little bit slower, but you need it. But I feel like most people can get down to tempo pace pretty okay. Strength pace might be a little bit of stretch, but once you get past more into that LT and faster, then pace is a genuine concern for just feeling comfortable on the treadmill. But I will link that calculator to in the. All right, so next thing I want to talk about is being flexible on your workouts. Being flexible on your workouts, it's crucial for winter training. And what I mean by being flexible is a number of things, right? So it can mean just switching days around to accommodate a better time to run or better weather, improving chances of better footing. So let's say you have a week where you have a big marathon long run. If you drove out to the metro park, you would know the footing would be pretty solid, but it's Thursday and you don't have time for that. So I do have time for just being able to putz 90 minutes easier on my neighborhood or on my basement treadmill. And then on the weekend, I have time. I can drive out to the metro park. I can do my big marathon pace workout there, right? So being flexible at the park, I can do my big marathon pace workout there, right? So being flexible in that aspect. But I'm also being flexible in what I'm doing. So notice I didn't say, oh, I ran my 14-mile long run. I said, no, I just did my 90 minutes, which constituted as what I would reach for the long run. I'm being flexible. I know I can suffer for 90 minutes. If it's 12 miles, it's fine. If it's the 14 miles, it's fine. I'm not gonna worry about going out and doing an 8-mile tempo. Maybe instead of doing the 8-mile tempo and you're really saying, hey, I'm going to go out and do on the neighborhood 8-mile tempo, probably not going to happen, but I'm going to do 4x15 minutes at marathon effort, right? I'm not going to worry about the pace. The footing's not necessarily there. I'm just going to do 4x15, get an hour's worth of work in at effort and call it a day. I could also do that on a treadmill. If I'm adjusting the speed and the grade to get that right intensity to match what I need for marathon effort, I'm not going to run 8 miles straight up at that effort. I'm not going to run 8 miles straight on like a 2 or 3% grade and whatever. But I can do that. I can break it up, right? And do whatever. But I can do that. I can break it up, right? And do 4x15 minutes because 8 miles at that intensity is not going to match the time, right? And so if you just break it up, you're being flexible, you're still getting the work in. It might not be the perfect situation, but it is much better to force the workout outside and just say, you know what, I'll get the effort in for about the same amount of time and we'll call it a day. We'll move on. All right, so to wrap this up, other points of interest you might want to consider: scoping out workout spots. I'll use myself as an example here. So I live off of one of the busiest roads in Oakland County, Michigan, Woodward Avenue. Woodward Avenue runs all the way from Pontiac to Campus Martius at the center of downtown Detroit. That's the first road that's going to get plowed in the winter. It's 3 lanes on both sides. It's a major artery for buses, whatever, anything going back and forth from Detroit. It's going to get plowed. My street is a few blocks over, and it might take days to get plowed. It might not get plowed, right? And so that's just the way it is. Sidewalks are a crapshoot, like anywhere. Some people are gonna do them. Like we had a lady on the corner. So the house it's been rented out. Keeps changes hands or whatever, and it's been rented out. Keeps changes hands or whatever, and the lady was just not a very nice lady. And it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. My neighbor and I are both out shoveling sidewalks. We go down there and shovel hers. And she's all mad that people were already walking. She's like, well, it blew her mind that people actually use the sidewalks, whatever. All right. So back on point here. However, there's a small subdivision by one of the parks close by. So this park, it's got a hill on it. People sled on it, whatever. But it's, I think both the high schools use it for their cross country course. Pretty nice little park. But anyway, you park there, and right next to that is a little subdivision. And the subdivision is super small. It's a K. It's a K loop around the subdivision. It's exactly a K. I use it for a lot of my work. So if you follow me on Strava, you'll know which route I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a private subdivision, right? And so they pay to have it plowed themselves, part of their HOA to that. And I know they're plowed earlier than anything else in our area. So I know, like, if it's bad and I'm gonna run outside and I got to work out, I can go there. I might have to adjust the workout, right? I might do a lot of Ks that, like if you see me doing like 20 by 1K, that's probably where I did it. And it's probably an adjusted workout to just make sure that it was the F over the amount of time, right? But that's just the way it is. And the thing is, like, around here, the metro parks, they're 45 minutes away. So I might not be able to get to there right away. But the nice thing is that the metro parks they're done way before everything else too, right? So the bike paths are usually cleared. They're out to them. Bike paths around us, they're gone. Like once it snows, it's gone, right? Like you can't use that until spring. It's just, like between snow melting and then refreezing, and then the snow, what'll happen is the snowshoers and the cross country skiers will take that over as soon as the snow starts falling. The cross country skiers will take that over as soon as the snow starts falling. And so once it is, like, that's their turf. That's their turf from like January to March, right? And then you just wait till the snow melts and then you're back on it. Second thing here is understand how much extra weight affects performance, right? So weight is always a touchy subject, right? You don't want to, muscle mass slows you down, right? So with that being said, if you're wearing a ton of extra clothes, it's pretty common to see people wearing an extra 3 to 5 pounds of clothes in the winter, between tights, socks, jackets, hats, gloves, and extra shirts. That's a lot of extra. And then the more you sweat, the more that's that's a lot of extra. And then the more you sweat, the more that's carrying in there too. So that's a ton of weight by the end of the time of a run is. But my point is, it's easy to see how adding all that extra weight is going to add 5, 7, 10 seconds a mile to your pace. So if you're doing a workout and you're like 10 seconds slow, even on decent footing day, but it's cold, that's one of the factors you kind of have to look at, right? And so, and then just, of course, too, the cold wind chill has an effect, just like the heat has an effect. And so, I actually have another blog post. I won't go into that now, but it's 8 ways that cold can affect your performance, and I'll link to that as well. But I think at the end of the day, you just gotta recognize, right? You're going to have to make some sort of adjustments if you're training in a winter weather area and trying to train for Boston at the same time, because it's going to be very difficult to do everything exactly the way it's written without some sort on your part, whether that's utilizing the treadmill, adjusting how the workouts are done, adjusting the timing of the workouts, a combination of those things. It's going to take some flexibility to get it done. And the thing is, if you can be flexible with that, you can still be very, very fit rolling into April. It's like once you get through February, start getting into March, it's kind of like the opposite of the summer. Once you get through August and September hits, you start getting some cool days. All of a sudden your pace drops and you don't know how it dropped other than it just got 20 degrees colder in the morning. But you're like, oh, I am pretty fit, right? And it's the same thing here. Like you can be struggling all winter, and then, March 15th rolls around, struggling all winter. And then, March 15th rolls around, and all of a sudden the sun reappears and it's, 50 degrees in the morning. And all of a sudden the workouts are like, oh, I'm not wearing 10 pounds of clothes and my pace has dropped 20 seconds, right? So, the same type of thing. And all of a sudden you realize you're fit, but you have to be willing, really tough stretch over January and February so that you can get to that point in March where you realize, wow, I really am pretty fit, right? And then you have a few weeks for that confidence to build, and all of a sudden you're ready to run on Patriots Day. So with that, that's the part 2 of my little segment here. And if you think you want to join us for some Boston training, we would love to have you. We are filling up some spots now. We're going to limit it this year because we're going to be more individualized on the attention. So we are going to limit the spots, and we are filling them up as we speak. You still probably have a little bit of time. I'm recording this on October 9th. So the program doesn't start until December 4th. But if you're interested, you want to sign up now, I will have those links for you. And just take a look in the show notes or the description of